Welcome to another episode of VNture Podcast, your weekly source of visual novel goodness. I am Emar, and together with Tauros, we shall venture into another discussion about VNs. Today we reminisce about the worst titles we've read, and the one who helps us live through those horrible experiences is none other than Adze. Welcome back!
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be able to suffer with you today.
Oh no. Yes, and for a quick reminder to anyone who's not familiar with you from last week, can you introduce yourself again?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Adze, and I am a video essayist. I do a lot of reviews and critiques of video games and visual novels, though usually they're good ones that I like to go to.
But not always.
I
Not
like how you added usually.
Yeah.
Oh no. Well, I suppose I'll get the ball rolling here and start talking about one visual novel I thoroughly did not enjoy from start to almost finish. And that would be Abyss of the Sacrifice. This one I picked up on Steam and it really seemed like a Taros VN. It's about a group of girls who wake up and find themselves in an abandoned, massive underground bunker. Like, there's also, like, it's huge and there's all sorts of elements to it, like, you know, a freezer room for storing food and like trash compactors and all sorts of bedrooms and stuff, but it's all abandoned. And you're wondering, like, what the heck happened here? What led to this stuff? Are they going to be able to escape? And one problem right off the bat is that this is, half visual novel, half puzzle room, where there's all sorts of gameplay segments where they're going through the facility, and for whatever frickin' reason, there are all these puzzles, like locking stuff and preventing access and whatever, and they have to find items in their environment to combine them in unique ways and to solve some weird logic puzzles to advance. And there's no explanation for why this whole freaking facility is full of this stuff. Like, at one point, there's a fire exit, outside stairway, and you operate the ladder by like manipulating blocks on a 2x4 grid. And I'm like, why is this here? This makes no sense. Who operates a ladder like this? Who set this up? And it's just portrayed as nothing special. It's just, here you go. Here's some puzzle gameplay. Which, I mean, I could deal with, but then there's the flip side of which these puzzles were awful. They were just consistently terrible puzzles. Some of the worst I've seen in like any escape room sort of game, where the leaps in logic were absurd. I would keep trying because, I don't like looking up guides or hints or whatever. So I'd keep trying and I keep trying to tackle this through different angles. And I'd just give up and I'd be like, okay, well, fine. Where's a Steam guide explaining how to solve this? And they're like, oh, well, you have to punch in the code like 2971 because of yada yada. And I'm like, that makes no freaking sense. How the heck am I ever going to get that? I don't even get why that works as a solution just looking at the answer now. What the heck? So it got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm just going to use a Steam guide to follow along for everything. And then that didn't work. So I'm like, okay, well, let me pull up like a YouTube video walkthrough to get me through this stuff. And then that didn't work. And I freaking soft locked myself in one room. And I'm like, okay, I am done with this. I don't know what the heck's going on here anymore.
Wait.
How am I following a guide? And apparently I soft locked myself. I am stuck. I cannot get through this.
Exactly, like sadly I did the same because on my example, my final conclusion is the worst thing I did is continuing playing, and you did exactly that. But how could you, following a guide, not finish the title? How?
I couldn't, man. I don't know. I even redid the room because I'm like, did I screw something up? Did I just, royally go off the wrong path here or something? And I'm just like, no, I still can't figure out what the heck. The video is clicking and I click it in my game and it's like nothing. I don't understand.
Whoa.
It could be that either it's buggy or is some sort of randomness to the puzzle, so you can't just look at a solution? Who knows?
I don't think so, but hey, maybe.
Oh.
Either way, it's like this hit a new low for me in terms of puzzles and gameplay interactions with visual novels.
I mean, before you unveiled what was really wrong, the way you described this title in detail, I was like, yeah, I tend to agree. This is Tauros' title, yeah. So far, so good.
I forgot to mention another thing that made this really a Taros title was that, like I mentioned, there's a group of girls.
Yeah.
And there are multiple point of views.
Oh.
Every I guess you could say every chapter has 5 different segments, and each segment is a part of the story with a different character as the point of view narration. Except when you have something like Shibuya Scramble 428, it's the same time block and it's the same events going on, and you just see it from different angles. And you get to see some, backstage info. Here's what this character was doing when you didn't see them from this character's perspective, okay? But in Abyss of the Sacrifice, these are all different events. And it's really weird because I have no idea how it all connects in like the one big canon events, because they're wildly different. It's like you have the group, they're exploring the facility, and then you have one girl who's like narrating this time she and someone else got stuck in a trash compactor room and had to solve puzzles and stuff to escape. And then you have another character who's like, here's the whole group exploring a freezer. And then you have like another character who's like, here's the whole group going through like the power generator room. And I'm like, what the heck? These are just all different. And there's nothing tying any of them together either. It's not like one of them mentions, oh man, I'm glad we got out of that trash compactor.
Is there no chronologically, any indication of chronologically placed events? Are those so disconnected?
Exactly. No, you're right. They're just disconnected. They're not tied together at all. So I was so confused. Like, what was the point of this multiple point of view, different segmented events? It was like these could just be done in any order.
Yeah, it's hard to do something like that and make it work. Like, it's rarely I do see titles that can kind of have a segmented approach that does tie into a larger narrative, but you got to be really good at writing to be able to pull it off.
I think that even in that example that you bring up, at some point you need to place those events in some frame, in some chronological order, or maybe in a sequence, even if in a moment they are disconnected. At some point they need to connect, otherwise it falls flat.
Sure. And like you mentioned, Adze, how, you need to have good writing skills to really pull that off. I mean, in Abyss of the Sacrifice, the story didn't even try. There was nothing in the overarching scene. It was literally just looking at like slice of life, but not slice of life. It was escape from a dangerous facility. And I mean, like, that's the weird thing. It's because there was just no overarching story or tied together. A lot of the story segments just couldn't cover any material except for just what's going on in the here and now and a whole bunch of flashbacks. So, like, I told you that the premise was just that these girls are trapped in an abandoned underground facility. And, like, hours in and several chapters later, I still didn't know any more than that. Like, I didn't even have a clue of there were a few plot threads, but just mostly it was just nonstop flashbacks about all of their upbringings and the character dives into their personalities and history and stuff. And I'm like, what is going on with the main story? Why is this place abandoned? What's going on outside?
So far,
I was so lost.
So far, I get vibes of a bad sequel to the Cube horror movie done in VM. Like that
fits so well,
right?
I wish.
But
oh man.
And what made you continue suffer through until you got softlocked?
I mean, I thought this was gonna pay off, man.
Oh no, you say those words. Oh
It was
no.
my mistake. I thought there was something coming. There were a few plot threads, and still, the premise is interesting. And there were, some stuff I was on the fence about if I like some of these plot beats or not. But, I thought, I'll finish it. I'll see where this is going. And it just still never went anywhere. I don't know, man. I did not like it at all.
Oh, really?
No. Yeah, I know this may be a surprise. We're doing a recording for worst VNs we've ever read, so that's a shock, I know.
Yeah.
It's like if I wanted to see the multiple point of view stuffs, then Shibuya Scramble, 428 did it great. And then if you want to see the weird sci-fi elements mixed with the whole survival in a weird trapped environment, then you've got the whole Zero Escape series with 999 and Virtue's Last Reward. And this Abyss of the Sacrifice was just blah.
I mean, the way you describe it, it sounds like they delivered a multiple perspective VN by the definition of you booting up different titles. Yeah, you have a different perspective.
Oh,
Congrats.
Get out of here, Mark.
Yeah, but that's what I get from hearing about that.
I really wish this could have been better. I just, man, there was a lot going wrong with it.
Yeah, that's the worst. When you see a title, it's like, this could have been really good.
I know this is a little off topic, but that's how I always felt about Chrono Clock, where someone has the power to turn back time 5 minutes. And most of the VN is apparently just about, it's an eroge and sex jokes and stuff. And I'm like, oh my god.
I mean, you said it apparently, as in you haven't read it?
I have not.
Okay. But you're not far from the truth. I did.
Oh god. Yeah. I refuse to read it.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that. Especially if you approach it with that mentality, don't do it. Don't do it to yourself.
Well, I am all petered out. I am frustrated again. So how about you, Adze? What? I'm sure you have your own different style of worst VN you've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely. And unlike you, I knew exactly what I was getting myself into with this one. Like, I went in expecting to hate it. But a few months ago, I decided, you know what? I want to see what the worst visual novel on VNDB is. So I just did the rating search, just starting from the bottom up. And I landed on a title called Teacher in Training, which is an OEL VN, I think it was by a solo dev. It's off. It was an experience, not one I'd recommend. It was a Nukige that was based in extreme femdom, and it was littered with every issue you could possibly imagine. The developer didn't know how to code, so there were bugs left, right, and center. There were no volume sliders. The writing was terrible. I almost threw up at one point.
Oh god.
And it was... And I mean, I've showed you guys some screenshots of it. It is genuinely like one of the ugliest visual novels I've ever read. And there were two things that let me push through it. One was that I knew I was going to make a video on it, so I'm like, hey, free content. And the other is that it was about 45 minutes long total. But although I will say there was some points where one of the... I wouldn't call them heroines because they're all just characters who abuse the MC. But one of the routes gets so ridiculous that it gets to the like so bad it's good territory. Like when they have an entire classroom of second graders kick the guy in the nuts. Like it gets to that kind of level at some point. And I don't know. I will say I think the most enjoyable part of that whole visual novel experience was writing the script for my video.
Wow. Okay, so I wanted to ask, if you make a video on this, like, how far can you go posting material on YouTube, considering it's a Nuki
Oh
and
yeah.
considering how like a lot of the stuff you mentioned were like you wanted to almost throw up?
Yeah.
That sounds very limiting, right?
To an extent. Obviously, there was a lot of footage I couldn't show. There was some images that I had to heavily censor, including one that is so heavily censored that it looks like I did it for a joke, but no, that's actually an accurate representation. And as far as talking about the content, I with a title like this, I try not to go into too much detail while still kind of explaining what's going on. It's just if I give a play-by-play, some of the stuff is just it's not gonna please the YouTube bot, so I kind of have to use weasel words, skirt around it. So I make do as best I can.
Well, thank you for your sacrifice in enlightening the whole world for this.
I'm actually curious about two words specifically you mentioned. One is it's so much different approaching title knowing it's bad, contrasting that to how Towers got lured into being the most Towers VN ever just to get slapped in the face. Did that initial approach made you steal your resolve to read it to the completion?
I will say it did that, and the promise of the fact I knew I was going to make a video on it. So I kind of I gotta get through the whole thing. And my hope was pretty much not that I would actually like it, but that it would end up getting to so bad it's good territory. And in some cases it did.
Okay.
And I think one of the worst feelings I get when I read a visual novel is when I'm disappointed. If I have no expectations, I can't get disappointed.
True.
So as much as I did not like Teacher in Training at all, I will say it's not the worst experience I've ever had reading a visual novel.
Okay, because you came in without expectations, right?
Yeah.
But was it worth it, having your stomach churn and vomit up?
It's like part of me wants to say no, but the video actually did pretty well, so I can't complain.
Oh, I see.
Oh no.
Oh my god.
Poor Adze is selling out for the fame and glory and money. Oh no.
Because the second
I
question...
pray for you, Adze.
Oh my god. The second question I had was regarding the writing script. Did you feel like that was your time for redemption? Like, okay, I suffered through, I had my torture experience, now it's my time.
Yeah, well, I will say it was actually a surprisingly creatively fulfilling experience to write that script, because part of it is it was different than what I usually do, because there wasn't as much depth to look into. Like I couldn't talk about themes and subtext because that didn't exist. So, I kind of had a chance to kind of just examine something that was bad and say, why is it bad? While also having a little bit of fun with it, because I don't usually get too funny with my scripts, but I enjoyed throwing in more jokes than I would usually throw in. So I will say it was different. It was a challenging experience, but I actually kind of had a good time writing that script.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that even though the experience in reading the VN was revolting, creating the script at the very least have been challenging and creatively stimulating.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I do also want to say I agree with you about the one part you mentioned where even reading something terrible like that isn't the worst feeling, because at least you can go in and expect to be disappointed, and you can steel yourself if you get an impression early on that this isn't the best VN out there. It hurts more when you're reading something that's really coming together and it has its strong points and you really like it, and then it just disappoints you, either because of silly plot twists, or it changes genres, or it loses focus on the things that you liked about it, just for whatever reason. When it's great, and then it slips down to being, subpar. That's even worse.
Oh yeah. I mean, that exact feeling is something I got from when I was reading Muv-Luv Photon Flowers. The final short story in that collection started out as potentially the best one in the collection, and then it just feels like it stopped halfway through and then resolved the conflict immediately, and I remember feeling really, really bad about that, even though I liked the collection as a whole.
Oh, like the ending just came out of nowhere and just tied everything up?
Yeah, they kind of set up like a core conflict and had one of the best scenes in that entire collection of visual novel short stories. And they set up this kind of emotional turmoil, and then it kind of skipped to a few months later where the main character had just kind of gotten over it.
Oh no.
It feels like almost like they ran out of time and just kind of had to
that's a shame.
finish it. Yeah.
I feel like I know which one you're referencing, and yeah, I was very miffed about it.
Yeah. And especially after some of the other ones were like actually on par with the main trilogy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah.
On that note, though, MR, you were sharing your experiences. Is there anything else other than Photon Melodies that you've been very disappointed with the VN?
Yeah.
Oh no.
Sadly, today, Vanyan a la mode. This is the VN I felt obligated not only to buy but also to read, and it's.
Oh, you bought it.
Yeah. And it's connected to a survey that Manga Gamer tends to do about their titles, suggestions, etc. And I participated a lot in those. One year I remember they asked what more to bring, and I felt like a little bit mimi, but I wrote, you know what? There's a lot of cat girls there, representation. There's Necopars, etc. Bring in dog girls, okay? I'll buy it. I read it, and they did. So I felt okay. They did translate Vanyan a la mode. I had, let's say, requested in one of those surveys. Let's buy it. Let's read it. Okay, I'll try to sell you Towers on it, because this is a title that pretty much, with its setup, features 6 childhood friend heroines. You basically start the title by having an MC meet them, and all of them say, "Oh, I remember you from childhood, you're that guy." And they instantly love you without any drama whatsoever, and that's it. It was
okay.
It was so weird to read what is basically Mareeck about restaurant, a similar setup to Necopara, this time with 2 competing restaurants, dog girls and cat girls, in which Protag starts and wins over everybody they won the second they meet, because they're all his childhood friends that fell in love with him long ago. And it's so weird because of that setup, this title is devoid of any drama whatsoever.
Oh no.
Okay, I'm reading, there is no conflict really. They like him, you know that, and you progress.
Because, it's a Mareeck, and
Yeah.
usually the whole appeal of that is the whole romance.
Yeah.
And, as stereotypical as it gets, there's always the whole will they, won't they,
Exactly.
whether they get together. And
Yeah.
you're just saying right at the start, all of them, they just yeah, we love you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
It's like I like a good fluffy moe title, like for after a long day at work, of just like no stress, just sit back and enjoy. But there has to be something for them to work against and bond over.
Exactly, there has to be something, like any kind of drama.
Because if there isn't, and it's just, empty, pure, fluffy nothingness, then, I don't really know why I'm reading this.
That's exactly.
I could just be living my own normal life.
That's exactly my experience, especially since they do into common route and character route, right? And every other segment you get a choice of who do you talk with, okay? And it progresses that character, love points, whatever, affection, some sort. And I was like, okay, I don't know those characters, let's talk with everybody. And before I ran out of characters, they ran out of common route at all, completely. And every time the character ended their specific event, the game immediately went back. Okay, so who do you choose now? Because they couldn't continue anymore. There was no common route. You are in the deadlock. They don't know where to go. There is no bad end. Please pick a character. We beg you.
Well, to be fair, that's how most visual novels are. They expect you to go all in on one heroine, and if you don't, then you get like some non-committal bad ending.
Yeah, non-committal bad ending, or maybe in case of ladder structure, they start to force you into some character. Here, you basically go back to main menu pretty much and pick a girl. Okay, I picked her. Okay, still not enough. Pick a girl. Okay, I picked. Still not enough. Pick a girl. What is happening?
That is on you.
Probably okay.
They're telling you, man, you gotta pick a girl.
I love how MR picks up a visual novel and gets bullied.
Yeah.
Dude gets told your game is weak.
Exactly. Oh my god.
Poor MR.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, how long was this VN? You
long?
said there's like common route and character route, so I'm assuming this is like a full-length, typical, AAA JP VN?
I'll be honest. For me, it was too long because I suffer through that every day and unwillingly proceeded because surely it will get good later. Surely it will get.
Oh my goodness! You thought any day now a new conflict will start?
Yeah, they introduced some conflict somehow, someday, and it never got better. It featured 8 character routes and 8 endings. It was way too long.
Ouch. That is rough.
Yeah. Just...
Which is weird, because you mentioned he was running a cafe, right?
I think it was... The school was running cafe. They had students that competed for some competition to win some prize, license. I just don't remember the story details, okay?
Okay, because there's a lot of opportunity with that. There's several directions you can go, all sorts of drama or problems that arise.
There's a conflict between 2 rival factions of dogs and cats. But the worst part of it, I felt personally betrayed, is that they cosplayed as cat girls and dog girls.
They weren't actual cat girls and dog. They were just putting on headbands.
Exactly.
Oh, if you can't even commit, then why are you gonna do that?
Right?
I don't know. I feel like if you'd want the actual cat girls and dog girls, because that alone is set up for a couple of hilarious slapstick scenes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
True.
You could get comedy out of it. You could be like, oh, those wacky, human-animal hybrids.
Yeah, but no.
Oh dear.
Here with us twist, but they actually human, and that's their costume. Yeah.
Weird.
Again.
That's another disappointing title, huh?
Yeah. And unlike you, Taurus, I never dropped it. I completed it. Which was probably...
You didn't... You the most difficult problem for you was just getting to pick a girl already. You had it a lot easier than I did.
Don't say it like that!
You almost got filtered at the title screen.
True.
I feel like Tauros went through his because of residual hope, whereas MR went through out of spite.
That's an accurate description.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Out of spite for just fluffy, happy, cutesy story. How could you? How could you spite that?
I'll finish it. If it's the last thing I do.
Oh, goodness gracious. And there was one last title, Adze, that you wanted to mention that I thought we could at least look at for just being ridiculous.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, not too long ago, VNDB changed its rating algorithm so that things got shuffled around a bit. So there was a new worst visual novel on VNDB. So I kind of felt obligated at that point. And this one was called one of the greatest names I've ever heard. Your swimsuit jumped over its own weathercock, you liar. And it's bad, but in a very different way than Teacher in Training was. In this one, the text is all procedurally generated. So they fed it Charles Dickens, Azumanga and a listicle, and just said generate text based on that, and it actually regenerates it every time you play through. So it's pure garbled gibberish, and it is an experience if nothing else.
Goodness gracious. Okay, so the whole thing is just Markov chains, right? Where like after every word, it just gets like, it runs a random number generator and just runs the probability to pick a new word, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I actually looked at the code itself, and it looks like it likes to generate pairs of 3. Well, those words don't connect, but it makes it so every group of 3 words looks like a group of 3 words that could appear in the seed data. So once you string it all together, it doesn't make any sense. But if you pick any 3 words in a group, it'll look reasonably normal.
Okay, and so how does it handle the sprites and expressions and backgrounds?
Those were manually done.
Okay, so those are at fixed instances.
Yeah. It basically
Okay.
The visual novel is already set up the way it's set up, and they just put in the text after the fact.
Even then, how?
Although it does randomize the dialogue choices, so you can never tell if a choice is going to lead you to continue or to... I guess you would call it a bad end, but it's not really an ending.
It's a bad choice.
Yeah,
Oh dear.
Your visual novel is now even shorter.
That is so weird.
What?
It's procedurally generated, just like a machine, just churning out random words.
How
Whack.
do you even know what to pick? Is it completely random?
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, it seems like a cool thought experiment, and not cool as a visual novel for entertainment purposes.
Yeah. I would have liked a better programmed version of this. Like, if they had
Oh?
a visual novel that had text generation that sounded a bit more natural, but still complete garbled gibberish, you could kind of play around with that and like create your own like little story based on what it generates. But you just couldn't do that with this one.
Oh man, oh man. Well, that's very cool. I mean, I guess if anyone wants to check it out just as a very neat curiosity, then you can. What's that name again? Your swimsuit jumped over
its own weathercock, you liar.
So whack.
Crazy. All right. Well, I guess that's a good note to end it on as any other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Although I do want to mention, though, that as much as we dislike these visual novels, props to the creators for actually putting in time and effort to create something. Who knows how good it may have been, but they at least earned that much.
Yeah, true enough. And while I might have not liked it, I hope someone did. So the effort wasn't in vain.
Yeah, I'm very on board with criticize the art, not the artist.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And yes, thank you again so much, Adze, for being part of our episode. I hope you and all our listeners enjoyed.
Well, yeah, thank you for having me. I always have a great time whenever I'm here.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, Adze. And to everybody else, goodbye and see you next week.